Sam,
Yes.
congratulations on your new short film, Ado.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Also congratulations. You're currently, during that FYC campaign right now, promoting Ado. How is that going with you?
Oh, it's going great. The team's been really wonderful. We had a screening at Four Seasons in LA a few days ago on Thursday, and Miss Lewis was able to join us. Her longtime friend Cheryl Lee Ralph was able to join us, and it was just a wonderful event. And it's just, in the spirit of these things, I've never done this before, but in the spirit of these things, I love all the opportunities that we've had since January of this year to just what I consider celebrate the film and what the film is trying to say and the people the film is about, the film's about. So yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind. It's been a bit crazy, but it's been very, very rewarding and encouraging.
Well, I actually watched a short film blindly without reading any synopsis or trailer
Uh-oh.
or anything else like that. So it was quite a surprise on what it was actually.
Yeah.
But we always have to ask an obligatory question is so Sam, where the original idea came from? What made you do this story?
Yeah, so there's a dedication at the end of the film for Miss B, and Miss B is my mother. But the her students have her name is Brenda, and her students have referred to her as Miss B for almost 40 years. And it was more out of a conversation I had with her a few years ago. I live not too far from Uvalde, and as there have been school shootings all over America, unfortunately, this one hit quite literally pretty close to home, where I teach and live, and where my mother teaches and lives. And I remember having a conversation with her about, Mom, you're almost 70 years old, nearing retirement age. What would you do in this situation? Outside of the protocols and all that. I mean, you can't move around too quickly and barricading yourself in a room. Yeah, I was really concerned for her, wanted her to retire. And she said, she didn't really want to go too deep into it, understandably, but she said something that was, the great initiator for this whole thing. She said, if I was ever in that situation, I think the only chance I'd have is if the shooter knew me. If he knew me and remembered who I was, I don't think he could hurt Miss B. If he remembered being one of my mom's students or who my mom has been to the school she's taught at, she was really convinced that irrespective of the state that person was in, they'd have a really hard time harming Miss B. Uh, and when she said that, it just sparked something in me that just made me feel like I don't think I've ever seen or experienced that side of the story. There have been plenty of explorations about shootings and school shootings and gun violence and all that kind of thing, and I didn't set out to make any kind of message film or political film or anything like that, but I thought, man, I think this side of the story deserves its turn too. And so, yeah, it really ended up being about me attempting to authenticate and be true to my mom's story and how I viewed my mom over all these years and how I know a lot of her students have viewed her over these years. And the film ends up being essentially a thought experiment about my mom. Thankfully, she's never been in that experience, but it seems like she believes it would go down something like the way it goes down in the film if she was.
How weird, my own mother told me to get out of the teaching profession because of that very reason that you said. She didn't want me to, risk day to day. But of
Yeah,
course
I've heard that a lot. I've
but
heard that
of
a
course I
lot.
was teaching college, so that's a
Yeah,
much different level. So
it is. Yeah, I tell people I'm a fake teacher being a professor, the same, obviously the same threats there, but I do not equate what I do in the circumstances which I reside. I don't equate it to what my mom has been going through for the past, 40 years. It's just not the same.
wow, it's such a relief because I was going to ask you about Mrs. B there, and I'm glad that this didn't really happen in real life because I was worried that you base this story on something that actually did happen. Not saying Uvalde
Thank
didn't happen,
goodness.
but something
Right. Yeah.
happened to you. Yeah.
Yes, thankfully has not happened. Hopefully never will have to go down that way ever.
Now, in the case of crafting the story, tell us about crafting it as a as a scene out of a out of play at the theater, troupe and all this kind of stuff. I'm taking it that you're a professor of theater. That's why, familiarity, is one of the key factors to the story.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So the part of the film that's truer to perhaps my experience is the Shakespeare. I'm a classically trained actor. I teach acting, I teach theater. I also teach in the film department. And so yeah, I wanted to infuse, that's a part of the film that maybe my mother she wouldn't use Shakespeare necessarily to stand somebody down or to stand and deliver in a particular moment. She'd probably sing a song, maybe, maybe in my mom's world, it'd be a musical that this person was in. And so she'd trade off songs. But yeah, I mean, I just like my writer partner said, it's kind of this gift that, of course, the greatest writer to ever write in the English language has provided something 500 years later that works for your little film, you know. Uh, so yeah, that's the Shakespeare is it's in the theater is definitely a part of my specific experience as a teacher and a practitioner that I wanted to include in the film. And yeah, we got some luck finding that passage to work as well too.
So that one passage, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a theater,
No, that's all right.
Shakespearean.
Plenty of grace.
Is it from Much Ado About Nothing?
Yes. So they're rehearsing Much Ado About Nothing. And, she says in the film, hey, you were in Much Ado About Nothing too, as she's speaking to the shooter. And then they share a speech that the shooter had to learn when he was a part of Much Ado About Nothing. And we watch them recall the speech in real time. So, yes, that is directly from Much Ado About Nothing.
Can you tell us about the significance of that speech, the meaning behind that speech, if that is relevant to the to this film?
Yeah, so from Shakespeare's POV, as best as we can tell, because we haven't spoken to him, but as his play's been performed for literally 500 years, this is a part of the play where, not to rehearse the entire play, but the father in the play has learned something. The father, Leonardo, has learned something about his daughter, Hero, aptly named, that's disappointing to him. And he doesn't want to believe that's true and he doesn't want to believe that his daughter is capable of this. And so, through the course of this speech, he's not only questioning, hey, this person that I've raised and I thought I've instilled all these wonderful things, what happened to that person? And how culpable am I for this actions that I believe she's done, or now this hit on her character that other people are telling me are a part of who she is now, and I just can't believe it. I'm so broken about it. And so through the course of this monologue, he is expressing out loud, as Shakespeare did, as he kind of invented, external thought. He is thinking out loud. How? Why? Why
Mhm.
is this happening to me? Why is this happening to her? Where did she go wrong? But even more so, where did I go wrong in my process uh, of raising this individual who I thought was one thing, but I'm finding out is another. And they are, the protagonist and antagonist in my film are taking that one speech and splitting it up, and it's just, it was intentional, but there's also a certain amount of happenstance that what I'm expressing to you that this character is expressing in the film also perfectly fits what I wanted these two characters to express in that particular moment.
Well said, well said. Now, on the production side, the theater location that you actually chose, is that a theater on a university campus or a high school campus that you chose?
High school, yeah, Pacific Palisades Charter High School, which when we premiered the film in Australia in January, uh, yeah, we were on the other side of the world when California was still dealing with the wildfires, and the wildfires actually affected parts of the campus where we shot the film. And it wasn't until I was in Australia watching the film, I was thinking, oh my gosh, there were actually some places in the film that don't exist anymore, uh, that had to get rebuilt and have been removed. Yeah, so the film is kind of a memorial and a monument in that way too, of some things that don't exist anymore. But yeah, we shot in California in Pacific Palisades, Pali Charter High, one of the few places that would allow us to shoot this film, based on the content. We got quite a few rejections. Um, and we had to move the film. We were going to shoot the film originally in Texas, but had to move the film to Los Angeles. And so we're actually very thankful to Pali Charter High, for letting us shoot there. They bailed us out in a really tight spot. It ended up being a great venue for us.
I feel like it's some kind of Shakespearean curse of tragedies or something that has to be tied to everything. What did you ever find out if the theater was okay or did that actually burn?
Yes, the theater is okay. Uh, but we shot on a weekend, so school was shut down, and they gave us a lot of leeway on the spaces. And so uh, there was a gym, kind of gym auditorium that was opposite from where we were shooting, where we housed everyone for costumes and where the kids could be with their parents to take a break. Uh, and across from that was a track football field. And the first I heard of the wildfires was somebody from California sending me a picture saying, this is across from where we held costumes. It is on fire.
Hmm.
So a whole portion of where we house some of the people during production, right across from there has to be rebuilt, doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, it's very sad indeed. Now, before I get into, the actual two cast members, can you tell me the cast members of the high school cast that you actually brought in? Are they local high school students that you actually got to play where they were like amateur or non-actors that you because it's always funny to bring that you don't like in the roles like those, you don't want to bring like the most professional actors or the
Right,
top
right.
Shakespearean actors to play these type of roles, right?
Well, the weird thing is that we originally crewed and cast up in Texas, as I mentioned, and the only actor that carried over from the Texas production is my daughter, who plays Maddie in the film. And so I brought her to LA. And so having to recast and recrew in LA, all of those actors, all those middle schoolers are from LA and from the LA area. We looked at a bunch of tapes. I cast directly from tapes. Um, and though the kids were, I mean, gig, they were the most professional out of everybody. And when you shoot in LA, you got to have a studio teacher, and they've got specific hours and all that kind of thing, and their parents have to be on set, and everybody was just truly terrific to work with. They were really incredible. They're really incredible. And they split they really did handle that difference, that balance gig of being kid, semi-professional actors. Some of those kids were already in SAG, uh, but they weren't. I didn't feel like any of them were like stage kids or stage parents, or where they were divas about anything. They came to the first night of rehearsal knowing all of their lines, and I mean, there's actually they had to learn more Shakespeare than is shown in the film. Like the whole half of an act we shot them performing. And a lot of the kids that you see on stage had lines, and we filmed all that, and so they had to memorize all that Shakespeare, and they were nails. They were incredible. They were incredible. They were one of the best parts of production. Yeah, so we got really lucky there too. We got some really good auditions, and we had some really great kids on set, and some really great parents as well.
How meta is it for you to direct actors to act on a theater stage?
Yeah, it's pretty meta. It's pretty meta. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. It was interesting. It was interesting. I thought what was more important on the kids, and again, a lot of this got cut out, but what I thought, particularly with the kids, was that it was actually going to be more authentic if they weren't that good, if that makes sense, right? If they were kind of just not just horrific, like actually getting the lines out, but it was important to me that the kids weren't this super polished Royal Shakespeare Company group of kids. I didn't think anybody was going to buy that for a group of middle schoolers. And so, yeah, I didn't want to overcoach them, if you know what I mean. I didn't want them to be so rock solid on it that it kind of felt like, oh, they're putting this on because they know they're in a movie. And so they're purporting this stage performance that's also very heightened or whatever. I wanted to err on the side of authenticity, and I thought that meant they might be a little rough around the edges. And so, we only see a couple of the kids end up speaking Shakespeare, one of them being my daughter, and they don't have that much Shakespeare. But I think we get enough of it to kind of see, oh, Miss Hopkins kind of needs to help them along, which is what happens at the beginning of the movie. So the line readings aren't quite there. It doesn't seem like you're completely connecting to some of the stuff we've talked about before. Let me help you out in the course of rehearsal, right? And then of course, the girl in the film, Maddie, my daughter, having some reticence about continuing and feeling not that great about her performance and that kind of thing, and Miss Hopkins encouraging her and that kind of thing. So yeah, I wanted to split the difference there, and I think the kids were right along with me in the meta experience of, oh, I think I know what Sam's going here for. We can't be too good. We need to be just good enough to get these lines out.
I feel like that's a
Whereas
lot.
if I was really trying to do the play, I think the demand would be slightly higher in terms of what I expected from the kids. If I was asking people to parents or come to see a full performance of Much Ado About Nothing by these kids, the expectation would be a little bit higher. But I think for the sake of the film, it just needed to be a little rougher around the edges.
I can't imagine the pressure, of your daughter getting all of this right, especially the Shakespearean lines, for you being the dad of Shakespeare theater and the director of a film like this.
Yeah, she had a lot of grace for me. She had a lot of grace for me too. You know, we got to do got to get some practice rounds at home before we got to LA. So she was ready to go, and she was terrific.
That is awesome here. And I'm just curious, did you have to get the costumes in Los Angeles or was it shipped from Texas?
Yes, Chanel Calzabon is our costume designer, and she got all of that from a warehouse in LA, all the costumes. And she was, I did everything remotely. I had to remain in Texas for most of pre-production. I wasn't in LA until the day before we started shooting. So everything was done through Zoom and pictures and FaceTime calls. And yeah, I've still got videos of her going through warehouses, taking pictures, showing me, FaceTime videos of what do you think about this and this and this. And yeah, everything in the film is LA except for my daughter and me. You know, yeah, it's all LA. Even, Crafty, of course, was LA. It was all LA, all LA.
Now, finally, let's talk about your two lead actors for this film. How did you perfectly want to cast them for their roles?
Boy, well, we felt like we had to. Obviously, the first person we wanted to cast was Miss Hopkins, because if we thought we got someone of a particular repute, that would be alluring for other individuals to collaborate with us. Uh, and that ended up being true. And so we actually asked several people before Miss Lewis, and we got a lot of rejections just because the name was too high, or existed up in a tier where there people thought, this person doesn't do shorts, or you're not going to be able to afford them, or what have you. And so, our wonderful casting director based out of Dallas, Allie Beans, got a script to Jennifer Lewis's people, and it was really her agent that went to bat for us. He read the script, loved the script, and said, "Hey, I got to find a way to get Jennifer to do this. She'd love it." And then she hopped on a Zoom with us, and yeah, talked about how much she loved the script and wanted to be a part of what she views as the advocacy of the story and of the character in this film. And then, the once we got her, which that took a while, the hardest role to cast, as you might be able to imagine, was the shooter, because yeah, we felt like we had to split the uprights on that uh, because of what we were asking that person to do. And on top of all that, we needed somebody who was capable of handling the language as well. You know, again, that person didn't have to be a classically trained Royal Shakespeare Company actor, but they had to be able to manage all the language in the state that we're asking them to be in a authentic and vulnerable way. And so, yeah, we looked at over 50 tapes, trying to narrow it down. And Zach Lane, who ended up getting the role, every round of tapes, he just kept sticking out as somebody who had something really unique that we didn't see for anybody else. We got a lot of tapes gig from the shooter who the other thing we wanted to figure out was we needed somebody who was secure enough in themselves that what we're asking them to do didn't come across as too villainous, if you know what I mean. It's what this person is doing is villainous enough. We didn't want to have this kind of twirly mustache, whatever character, you know, uh, that person in real life or that character deserves what they get, right? That person is obviously ill to want to go or believe they must go through some kind of thing like that is disturbing, obviously.
Mhm.
Uh, but we didn't want the actual actor to be disturbed. We needed the actor to be able to separate himself from that in a way that was healthy for him, for lack of a better way to put it. And so, Zach and his tapes just kept presenting this vulnerability and humanity in the character that we weren't getting from anybody else. And there are some things, what the Martin Scorsese quote is 90% of directing is casting. Uh, and I just felt like both Miss Lewis and Zach Lane made my job a lot easier on set because of how hard we worked to cast them before they even got there. And I think the how easy it was on set is an indicator that we did cast the film well. They're the MVPs of the film for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad that you got them into that mindset and got them out of out of those dark places too. So.
Yes. Yeah. 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 We had mental health professionals on set for both the groups of kids or parents or any of the actors who wanted. I don't know if, I mean, it wasn't really up to us to know. I'm not sure if anybody used the services, but that was something we wanted to be very upfront about. Obviously, people who collaborated with us were familiar with the script and knew what we were going for, but I didn't want to do any actual internal harm to anyone who they're essentially making this sacrifice for me to tell the story that I want to tell, and so we wanted to be very sensitive. And cognizant of everybody else's mental health, through the course of this film, even though it was, 3 or 4 days, we still want to be very, very mindful of that.
Well said. Well, Sam, I've taken a lot of your time already, but
Oh, not at all.
let me ask you that this final thing is what's up next for you? Are you going back to a Shakespeare in theater already?
Well, me personally, I am in the theater. I'm in Dallas. I'm driving back and forth to Dallas because I'm in a Christmas Carol for the next 2 months. And so we're finishing up rehearsals and our show open we'll start previews on Friday. And so I'll be doing that, for the next month until December 27th, when we close. And then for the film, we're on an Oscar campaign gig, which is really bizarre. But we're 4 times Oscar qualified, which I still can't really believe. And yeah, I want to be a good steward and faithful to the journey of this film, whatever that might be for us. And I'm really, really excited and feel really privileged as it relates to how people have responded and embraced this film from all over the world. And so I'm really excited about seeing the end, getting to the end of the journey of this short film, and hopefully it opening up the doors for me to make my feature film debut at one point, whether it's of this film or some other film.
Well, Sam, soak it all in because this is a great experience for not a lot of people get to go through
Yeah,
this experience.
yeah, I feel. Yeah, very honored, very blessed.
Well, it's a pleasure speaking to you, Sam. Thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us about Ado, and good luck with the rest of the FYC campaign.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Gabe.
All right, we'll circle back again, hopefully on your next project. Thank you very much, Sam.
Terrific. Thank you.